Hi everybody, this is KnightFighter22 here. I hope you guys are all well. I'm here today with Connor.
Hi everyone.
Today we're going to be looking at a very great chess opening. I'm going to be doing quite a few videos on this, but this is just going to be a very quick introduction to it. It's called the Danish Gambit. This opening is for really aggressive players that want to sacrifice a lot of material in order to get a head start in the game. Most of these Grandmaster games actually depend on winning in the middle game. Most Grandmaster games involving a Dutch defense lead on to an early checkmate in the middle game. It's not one for endgame players. You know, if you want to play this opening, you're going to win quick. It's got very good stats, and we're just going to take you through the position now.
Yeah, okay, so we start off with pawn e4, and then e5.
Okay, so pawn to d4, offering up the gambit. E takes d4. I think this is just literally called center game accepted. A lot of times you'll see queen takes d4 on knight c6, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go ahead and offer up even more material. As you can see by doing this, you know, you can already see the aggressive. The bishop's going to come out. This queen has got all this scope to come out. Look how many squares the queen can go to. This bishop's going to come out, you know, all these pieces are in the firing line. Again, he takes. That's our second pawn gone. And we're just going to play bishop out to c4. Right then. And what they're actually going to do here is they're going to take the pawn again. So this is our third pawn. You know, D, C, and B, we've lost them all. And we're going to play bishop takes b2. So this is the Danish Gambit accepted. This is the main position we're going to be studying from. What you'll notice about this position is we have all these open files. Our queen is ready to go. Our bishops are really pointing down at the kingside castle position. And yeah, look at Black's position. He hasn't moved one piece out of the starting place, and his only pawn he's moved has been taken by our piece, you know. This is why we give up 2 pawns for it. Okay, so there are 3 main moves that Connor and I are going to be showing you. 2 of which I regard as very easy to win, and one of which is definitely very playable and I think will give you an advantage. It's worth mentioning, if we go back to this position, from the stats on the 365 chess database from all Grandmaster games, White wins 50% of the time.
Yep.
This has got a low draw percentage, as you can imagine, but I think Black is only going to win about 25% of the time here, so it's worth playing.
It's good. Okay.
Okay, so the first move you're going to see, forgive me for the mispronunciation, d5 schlechter defense. It's something like that. You don't really need to know the ins and outs of it, but pawn to d5. The whole idea from the opponent is blocking out the light square bishop, you know, and also, you know, yeah, as I say, blocking out the light square bishop and providing a bit of a counter-attack. As you can see, there's a little bit of tension on this d-file, so often these queens will be traded off, which is exactly what you do not want to do. What we're going to do here is we're actually going to go ahead and take with the bishop to get a very active bishop. And there's actually a nice little trick here. If your opponent goes ahead and plays knight c6, obviously he's attacking both the pawn and the bishop, which is still defending each other. You can just go ahead and play knight up to c3. And the very worst case scenario is that he'll go ahead and take the bishop. And there'll be a nice little trade here. And you may be thinking, oh, you don't want to give up the bishop for the knight in this such open position. But this knight turns into a very, very powerful piece, I can absolutely guarantee you. And with this bishop, you know, this diagonal is completely open, and there's nothing he can do to defend it at all. You know, his queen is very active. If he ever wants to play f6, that's just stupid. Queen h5, g6, queen to e5 check, and he's really in the down. So this is literally, this amazing position is probably the worst possible case scenario you're going to get. As I said, d5 is a strong move, which is why it's the most common. But still, nonetheless, a lot of people, especially if you're playing below the 1800 level, they won't even know what to play, so they might not even play this d5 move. Okay, so the next most common move you will see in the position is knight to f6. This is the classical defense for the Danish, at which point you can just attack even more and play your pawn up to e5. This leads to the knight getting very harassed, as you can see. I mean, what's the knight going to do? He can't go to h5, he can't go to g4. You know, he can go to e4, but it's going to be very easily attacked. So, you know, this knight to f6 move, it might be a little bit dubious. We're definitely going to go into more detail with that. Say if you had a move like knight to e4, you're going to get queen f3. Look, here, there's a threat of mate. And there's also a threat of taking the knight. So what's he going to do here? He could play the knight back to f6 to defend against that. It's just going to be taken by the pawn. Alternatively, he can play, you know, his own defense to defend this, like f6, and then queen takes knight. Yeah, exactly. He's lost a piece. And look at this diagonal. Like, this bishop is going to be immensely powerful for the rest of the game. Even he can't even try and castle here because the bishop is blocking him from doing that. There is one other move I'd like to go over before I end the introduction, which actually might be a bit more common than knight f6. Looking into that knight f6 move, it's not actually good, but bishop to b4 check. This is for all the aggressive players, all those ones that want to counterattack against what you're doing. There's a couple of options you can do here. The chess database, it actually suggested king f1. I've done some research into that, and I can't actually see why it would do that. But what you can go ahead and do is play knight to d2 or knight to c3. Now, there's a reason that I regard knight to d2 as better. What do you notice about the bishop on b2 and the square on g7? I mean, that's going to be deadly unless he does something about it. He'll often try and trade this off. But again, you have this amazing attacking position for the two pawns. Say, for example, he tried something, you know, say defending that g7 threat and moved his knight up to f6. Strong development move. Obviously, this pawn is defended by the pin's knight, I should say. What about something like this? You know, queen out to b3. I suppose he could always take the knight, but there's a very strong threat on f7 here. Imagine that sort of threat. The other option you can play is knight to f3. The disadvantage with this is it blocks off the bishop, but there's less of a threat. So again, knight to f6. This position I'd maybe recommend playing e5, but you've got this queen b3 threat of taking the bishop and also contributing to this f7 diagonal. Now, I'm sorry that was a bit of a rush. We are going to go through this in more detail, but that was just an introduction. If you like the sound of this opening, please go ahead and check the more videos which will come out soon. If you don't like the sound of this opening and you're a positional player that would like to focus on endgame study, check out my videos on endgame study if this opening is not for you. Okay, so thanks very much for watching, everyone. I've been KnightFighter22, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Goodbye.